everybody, welcome to another Shoulda Boosted. This is episode 25, and we have a real special guest here. But before we get to that, Mark, how's it going?
Oh, I thought I was a special guest.
Well, you're always special to me, for sure, bud.
Special, yeah. I'm doing all right, man. I've actually got some sleep this time, so I'm not running like 30-something hours and recording stuff.
Are you allowed to do? I think it's in your contract. You're only allowed like 2 hours of sleep per like week or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Getting to that special guest, though, we have for our 25th episode, Doug Hamilton from Privateer Press. So, Doug, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Locked down. Doing okay, though.
Fantastic. We got a bunch of questions for you before we gush over everything you do. But, for the few people that don't know who you are, do you just want to give a quick 101 of what a Doug Hamilton is?
Sure, absolutely. I am a full-time 3D sculptor for Privateer Press. I've been with Privateer for 7.5 years now, and I'm one of those lucky people that get to do what I love for a living, and I also get to, those toy soldiers that I make, I get to use them and play the games that I love to play.
Hell yeah.
Seems like the dream.
I was going to say, for those people who don't know who you are, Doug, just stop listening. Turn it off. Unsubscribe. Go away.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't want
if they're not fans of my 3D work, then they might be, fans of my hockey team. But
it's true. Fossil hockey's pretty cool.
Fossil hockey. We're even doing Fossil Fest this year.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, we broke quarantine last weekend, and a few of us got together, and we stayed apart, but had a few beverages, and we planned Fossil Fest 2020. Got a
nice.
live band booked, and it's going to be an event.
It's pretty legit.
So the first question I have for you is just, what is it like being a sculptor for Privateer Press?
I couldn't really ask for much more. It's a great job. It's doing something that I love to do. I'd be doing it even if I wasn't getting paid. I'd be doing something like this. And fortunately, I've been a full-time employee for, like I said, 7.5 years. And the first half I was in the studio in Seattle, and then going almost 4 years ago now, I've been a remote employee back in St. Louis.
And what's the typical day? Do you have just kind of like a list of models that you're supposed to make, and you just kind of go about them? I'm assuming you have several projects on the go. Do you get to just basically decide what you want to work on? How does that even go?
It's a little give and take. So usually I'll get concept art for whatever projects I'm working on, and normally I'll have anywhere from 3 to 6 projects going at a time or lined up, depending on what comes in or what I like or what they need done. And usually if I see a piece of concept art that I really like, I'll ask for it. For example, the new Legion of Everblight art just came through. Mm-hmm. And so I saw that, and normally I do Legion anyway, and so I was quick to ask for that. I messaged my boss, who's also a remote employee, but he's been with the company for 9 or 10 years now, Ron Truzzi.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I messaged him right away, and I said, "Hey, there's new Legion art." I'm like, "That's kind of in my wheelhouse, and I want to, if we have enough time, I want to do all of them."
Yeah, and just kind of in your wheelhouse.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Well, he messaged me back right away. He's like, "Yeah." He goes, "I was thinking it was kind of in your wheelhouse too, so there's no reason for you to not plan on doing all of it." Perfect.
Nice. So is it almost kind of like a Hollywood actor where you have an agent that's lining you up with projects, or?
Well, I have a boss that does it. I mean, I'm a full-time employee, so I don't. I still have to do what they tell me. So there's times where there'll be something that I don't really want to work on, but because I'm the only staff sculptor, there's just times where he'll tell me, "I need you to do this," and we'll haggle a little bit. Sometimes he'll tell me, "I need you to do this, but I'm going to let you have these other sculpts that you asked for." So it's a little give and take, and he also, we've worked together for so long now. He knows what I like, what I don't like, where I'm going to be strong and where I'm not going to be strong. So I usually get what I want, but I also understand that I have to do some things that I don't want to do.
So can you say any product you've worked on that you didn't want to do?
I did a level for the level 7 Kickstarter. There was an exclusive model with that. I really didn't want to do that. Let's see what else.
And you didn't want to do it because it wasn't your style, or you were into something else at the time?
Yeah, it just wasn't my style. I actually like working on hordes stuff more than anything else.
Amen, brother.
Just because I like working on the organics more than the hard surface. Trying to think of what. I think I did a few things last year that I wasn't particularly excited about. I know the last time that Legion got an update, they had the Ogren, and I did Callus 2, which I liked.
Yeah, you did.
But I can't remember the name of the caster even. The Ogren caster that came out.
Animag.
Animag. I just didn't care for her. I've never been a big Ogren fan. So at the time I was working on all the new Crick stuff, the new Statixis, and Scar 3, and he asked me if I wanted this Legion stuff, and I was like, it's okay, go ahead and give it to somebody else. So I mean, they turned out great for what they were. Sure. I just don't like the Ogren. It's just not my thing.
That's fair.
So maybe that's a good segue into what I want to talk about next, was just kind of like the best and then the worst thing about working as a sculptor for Privateer Press. So maybe you already touched on, but what would you say is the best part as working as a sculptor for Privateer Press?
Well, I mean, the best part is getting ready to hanging out with everybody at the conventions, drinking beers, whatever, Canadian whiskey. Actually, no, that's kind of the suck up part. But the best part, I think, is actually being able to use the models you make on the table. I play the game, so I enjoy using models that I make, especially if it's something really cool.
So are those? I'm not even sure what factions you normally play. So do I assume then you play like Cricks and Legion then?
I bounce all over.
Okay.
There's only a couple of factions I probably haven't messed with. Signar I've never messed with. Trolls I've never messed with. And I mean, really the last 6 months I've been working on Mercenaries. After seeing the Legion of Lost Souls last year, I was like, well, I don't know who they're gonna work with, but I'm making an army that uses them.
Okay.
But I bounce around. It's whatever. It's cool. Like right now with the new conversion stuff coming out, I really want to play Aurora 2.
So, but I guess with that best part, you're saying like the best part of the job is really just the people and the community is what you're saying.
It's not a secret. I love the community and the community loves me, and we've had a really good relationship from day one, really. And I don't make it a secret. I really have a good time with everyone that plays our game.
We do love you too, Doug.
Oh, thanks. It's given me some great opportunities. Before working for Privateer, the only place I'd been outside of the continental U.S. was Puerto Rico. I went to high school in Puerto Rico for a while.
Really?
But I hadn't really traveled internationally, and I had the opportunity to go over to the Czech Republic for European Masters a few years ago.
Nice.
And then last year I went to, was it last year? It might have been the year before already. I went to Athens for Greek Masters and participated in that. Actually played some games in that one.
Oh, nice.
So it's,
and then a few years ago.
I think it was 2 years now.
It's better than I know your trips.
Right. Well, it was 2 years because last year I went to Mexico and I did not play War Machine in Mexico.
Right.
What I would have if somebody was there to play.
They have a community down there, apparently.
Yes, they probably do. I just didn't. I mean, we were there for 7 days. My girlfriend would have shot me if I'd have brought War Machine on that trip.
So you buy it there and then play it.
Well, I don't really. I mean, one of the other perks is I don't have to buy War Machine.
So the next part of this, though, what's the worst part of being a sculptor for Privateer Press?
The worst part? Well, the worst part and the best part are very similar. Oh, sometimes the community can really get on you.
Like shitty podcasts that ask you to come on their show.
The podcasts don't bother me. Just the players are so passionate about it. They're so passionate about the game and the models and the history, and that they kind of forget that there's other humans behind it, that maybe they make mistakes, or maybe they don't do it exactly how they think they should, or you go to the game store and you just want to play some games and hang out, and people want to tell you what you should do and what the rules should be and how this sucks, or they don't like this person, or there's just sometimes people forget that that they don't, that it's just regular people doing this for us, for a job.
Yeah, for sure. So you're getting a lot of like dev questions when you're a sculptor type thing.
I get all kinds of questions. I think because I try to answer so many of the questions, especially on social media, that I am a sculptor, a writer, a developer, a shipper, a customer service, which I'm not. I'm just the sculptor. But I try to help people out if they're having some issues. Usually I can email customer service if something comes up, or I'm always trying to put out fires if necessary. Or if I see somebody on social media that's upset about something, I'll try to jump in and help them out, because as a fellow gamer, I understand if you get a mispack, or your shipment hasn't shown up yet, or you've sent 3 or 4 emails and nobody's replied. So I try to jump in and kind of soothe that situation and let them know that we are listening. There's just not that many of us, and we're trying to do a lot of things.
Yeah, you've helped me out a few times. I know that.
Well, I tried, and
you did. It worked.
Okay, good. I had somebody the other day posted, and he was missing a part that he had put in an order for last fall, and then he put on an order for some new product last week, and he hadn't heard anything on either of them. So I was able to touch base with customer service, and they looked it up. They had sent out the part last fall, and it just, whether it got lost in the mail or whatever happened, it never made it to the customer. And so they were quick to let him know that they'd sent it out on a certain date, and they just have to resend it because it never made it. And he was happy, everybody was good, and I'm sure he's going to post something online about how we took care of him right away.
Oh, probably.
Yeah, probably not, but
give the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, hopefully he does.
Yeah, I'll never forget, like you're saying, some of the positive and negative back and forth there. I think it was 2 or 3 lock and loads ago. We're all sitting there eating dinner, and we're talking about some mini crate models you just did. Do you remember that?
You're gonna have to give me more detail.
True. And
where we were eating dinner and what was being consumed.
We're all at Mox. I don't remember what we're eating, but a couple gentlemen were voicing their opinion about how they think that the mini crate models are too over sexualized. And you shut them down so fast, and I loved it. It was beautiful.
I don't remember exactly what was said, but I'm not shy about expressing my opinion.
I think the gist of it was, I like big boobs, so I'm gonna make them with big boobs.
Yeah, that sounds like something I would say. I mean, everybody's going to have their different opinion on how a model should be built, and everybody has a different thing that they like, or a different look that they like, and that's okay. I'm going to try to follow the concept art, but there are aspects that I can add to models that I like, and I do.
Yeah, I don't blame anybody.
Yeah.
So maybe that goes in what we're going to be talking about next, which what are some of the challenges that you face that your regular gamer just doesn't really even understand?
Challenges that the regular gamer doesn't understand. Sometimes you can't get too crazy with a pose because of how the mold works. And I think every miniature company deals with that, trying to explain why they did something, or why they did a pose, or why they had to make a cut a certain way, because there's only so much you can do with a mold, and sometimes you have to backfill something, and so there's not a trap in the mold, or you have to make a part really thick so it looks kind of weird, or I think the toughest part on that is when we show renders, and I hate showing 3D renders because on a 22-inch monitor, things might look a certain way than when you shrink them down to 32 or 35 millimeter. Things like hands and feet and heads and the thickness of weapons, or like I was just working on a Riot Quest model that has feathers, and the feathers are so thick on my screen that if you see a render of it, it's tough to not say, wow, there's something wrong with that. But then when it's at scale at 35 millimeters, it's going to look perfect. Mm-hmm. So that's hard to explain to people, that this render looks a little odd and those fingers look like sausages, because they have to. Because if they were true scale, like they are, if they're true scale at on a 22-inch monitor, when you shrink it down, literally the fingers are going to disappear. So that's always tough. And there's different mold making, like hard plastic, like Games Workshop uses, or some of these other companies. There's no give to the mold, so you literally cannot have any kind of undercut. Whereas we're using a softer mold where we can get away with a little bit of undercut. So there's not as many pieces, or especially not as many tiny pieces that you have to try to put on.
Yeah, I can only imagine when you have to try and, you have your concept art that you have to actually create from, but then you have to think about how the mold's going to go together, the way that it's going to have to actually sit on the base, the way that maybe it's going to have to be pieced together, that it must be, like, do you ever have something where you basically sculpt something and then have to scrap it because, like, oh yeah, this is impossible to actually create as a physical model?
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't say we totally scrap it, but we have a couple of guys, Stu and Kalen, in the studio. They're digital engineers, and what they do is they work with our production department on figuring out where the cuts have to go and what pieces might have to be removed, what parts might have to be changed or resculpted, or something thickened up. Or what they'll do is they'll do test prints, and then they'll work with production, and they'll identify the best way to break a model down. They'll identify problem areas that might need to be fixed. And with me as a staff sculptor, there's a lot of times that might come back to me and I can help them out. But working with freelancers, you can't really kind of go back and tell a freelancer, oh, I know it's been 6 weeks, but we need you to go back and do this or do that. It just So we have a couple people in the studio that they take care of all that, and they do a great job. And I did some of that on top of sculpting. I did the engineering for the first 2 years at Privateer, and that's an unforgiving job. It's not easy.
They kept you busy, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. And I did a little bit of engineering again last year, and when we got backed up, especially I think it was on some of the Infernal horrors. So I had to do some of my own engineering, and so if they don't go together very well, it's my fault because I screwed it up.
So you're saying the Desolator's your fault?
Yes.
Okay.
It absolutely. Yeah. If there's, which one's the Desolator? Is that the
spray one?
Yeah, with the spindly arms on top.
Yep.
Yeah, I assume you're talking about the spindly arms.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Where the claws go into the wrists.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It
okay.
looks
I
cool.
Still love you, Doug. It does. I don't think you've ever made anything that I've said does not look.
I'm sure there's a few in there.
Not a single one, buddy. Not a single one.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that.
All right. Well, the next topic that I had is probably one that's going to be a little of a hot topic, and I know one that you're passionate about, and it's just where we are going into a world where lots of people around have 3D printers, and people are sharing around different designs and stuff like that. I've seen several times where people are asking, oh, do you have the file for the blockader arms? And a very angry Doug Hamilton has come in. So what are kind of your thoughts on that?
Well, I wouldn't say angry. I just think that there still has to be some respect for the IP and for things that belong to us. That the things that we've put work into or that we rely on to make money, and then people come in and they expect it to be given out or someone to to find the files for them or to make them the exact duplicate of the file. I mean, I get people are going to do mods, and with 3D printing being so prevalent now, I get that they can do that on their 3D printers. But at the same time, I don't want people to forget that we're producing this and we're selling it because as a company, that's how we make money. And when you stop buying it, then those companies go away. I mean, a good example that I like to use is No Quarter. No Quarter was a great magazine, especially at the end. The reboot and those issues were fantastic, but with print kind of not as popular, I guess, everybody wants everything digital. The online communities would always ask for someone that bought it to just take pictures and post the article or scan the articles and post it online so they didn't have to pay for it. Well, at some point, you stop making enough money to pay for the artists and the content and the writers, and eventually you can't afford to publish the magazine.
Yeah, it was pretty unfortunate that went away. I was a big.
Yeah, it was really a well done magazine.
So I don't know if this is something you can speak to, but is there anything that Privateer Press is doing to try and address this? Like I know, like with GW, they've tried in the past to take a real strong legal action against those that are trying to create it, or is the idea just try and make models so awesome that you don't want to try and make your own because you definitely want to have a Doug Hamilton? Like, are you allowed to say what kind of like their thoughts are on this?
I mean, we don't really have a huge problem with it right now. I don't see anybody out there producing our models and selling them or giving them away. I mean, there's been some mods here and there and maybe a piece here or there, but I haven't seen anybody go in and just outright resculpt some of our stuff and give those files away. I mean, it wouldn't be my department to decide how that's handled.
Fair enough.
But if I see it, I'll definitely be bringing it up.
Yeah, probably the one I've seen the most is the one where I said there with the blockader arms. That's probably the one I've seen the most that was going around.
Yeah, and I tried to shoot that down. There's been a couple other times where I've made comments about some shady file sharing, and I can't remember which group it was. It may have been the Merc group, where one of the admins was like, well, I don't see anything wrong with what's happening.
Mercenary players are the worst.
You're not wrong.
I can't remember if that was the group or not. I don't remember which one it was because there's been, in the last few months, there's probably been 4 or 5 different instances where I've had some kind of issue with it. And again, I don't have the issue with doing mods because a cool mod is great. And right now, most of the mods that I'm seeing from 3D printers have not been great, so I'm not feeling too threatened yet. But
you're like amateurs.
Well, I mean, I also have to be concerned for IP theft and things like that. I mean,
right?
It's just something I watch, and I don't want people to just assume that it's okay to try to duplicate the files and sell them or give them away or whatever they're going to do. I mean, I can't stop them. I don't personally have the legal means to stop them, but I can still identify it in the groups and ask that it be shut down.
Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of people just don't really realize that if you do that, you're kind of feeding into the problem, because the reason why people are doing this is because, well, this is expensive, so instead of doing this, I'm just going to have it 3D printed. But like you said, if that money's not going to the company, well, then all of a sudden costs go up. You probably have to charge more for models. And I know that you can't really probably speak to that part again, but it's really just the idea that they're shooting themselves in the foot, because it's just going to make things tougher and tougher. Prices will have to go up. And I mean, where's it going to go in the end? Something that somebody else had talked about too is just how some companies, what they do, like especially for Kickstarters, instead of actually selling you the models, they would sell you the print. Now, obviously, you probably can't speak if this is something that Privateer Press would do, but what do you even think of that type of a business model?
You mean they'll sell the print file?
Yeah.
Well, if I sell you the print file, say I sell you the print file for the blockader arm and I charge you $10, what's to keep you from just printing up a bunch and selling each one for $10?
Yeah, exactly. I was. It seems like it's an easy fix in the beginning, but I mean, once you open that door, then you're really in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds cool and honorable to be like, all right, we're gonna sell 3D files so people can print their own stuff. But if I spend 40 hours on a sculpt and I sell you the file for $20, and I'm counting on selling enough of them to justify my salary for the week, but two or three of you guys buy it and you give it to your friends and you put it on a file sharing site, or you take the file and you upload it to another site where people can buy it from you. My family's going hungry and my company's going out of business.
Yeah, exactly. So
And
maybe
then,
something with it, because you talked about you were looking at what models were being bought. Is that something that actually works into your sculptor world as well? That you see like, geez, everyone's liking things in these dynamic poses, or everyone's liking ones where they're having, they're standing at the ready. And so depending on what poses are selling the most, you actually then change what you're designing for future models. Is that something that actually comes in?
I don't know that plays too much. I don't know that plays into it too much. And I don't have a whole lot of input on that. Like I can tweak a pose, or if I think a pose looks dumb, I can go back to my boss and he can bring it to our art director, or we'll just change it. I mean, there's times where I might not like a pose, or some of the art that I have right now. There's some things that I don't like about it, and I understand how the faction should look, and I understand the artistic side of it. That I think I can make some tweaks to it, and it may not get noticed, but I know that it might, in my eyes, it might look better.
Is there like a pose you love doing more than other ones?
Man, as long as I don't get told, make it like a Shaolin monk pose, because I'm so tired of hearing make it like a Shaolin monk. Sometimes I think we'll sketch out some poses that it might look good on paper, or it might look good in their head, but they haven't actually tried that pose. And so they might have the way the weight sits might be off. Or one of my other favorites is some of our artists have never held a weapon, and so they're doing a pose with a weapon, or how they think a weapon should be held, and they obviously haven't held a weapon. So usually I'll fix that too. Sometimes I'll have to send over a picture. I'll send it to my boss and be like, look, this is how it should be held. This is what this thing looks like. So it fits in your hand properly. And I'll be like, just fix it. I don't care. Just make it right. Okay. That's all I wanted.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe just to close off then, maybe we kind of skipped over this quick when it came up, but just the idea of sexy models. So you had talked about how, you like to design things the way that you like, and people like what people like and stuff like that. But is that something that you've taken a lot of heat for? Is that, I mean, really the models seem to be kind of the same. I don't think it's really where in particular yours are more than others, but what's your take on that?
I mean, I like to have a diverse selection for people to pick from. I mean, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and things were a little different then, and sometimes better, sometimes worse. But when I'm sculpting something, I just like to have some diversity to it, and sometimes that might be a sexy model, sometimes it might not be a sexy model, or it might be a buff dude or a skinny dude, or an unattractive male or female or creature or whatever. I mean, I like to be all over the place with it. I mean, if I had to pick, I'd pick a sexy female, because that's what I personally like. But I try to have as much variety as I can, and even on, like, the one year I think I sculpted 28 models and 26 were female. And I still try to make each one a little bit different, or change it up a little bit, because I know everybody has different tastes and what they like or don't like. Or I know that I'm not going to make every single player happy with one sculpt. So I just try to do the best I can and have some variety and add some different flavor to it. And I mean, even if it's a sexy model, I still try to keep it tasteful. I don't think I have anything out there that people would be particularly offended about. I mean, there's nothing that I've done that I would be embarrassed to have on the table at a game store.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like Schrodinger's model, where you talk to these people, and on one hand, they might say like, "Oh, these models are over, made to be this fantasy look or something like that, pushed to extremes." But at the same time, when you look at what they're buying, that's what the models that people like, right? You're not buying something that looks like some nerd at a computer desk or something. You want something that looks like a brave knight or this, whatever type of mage or whatever it is, something that has this fanciful look to it. And so you can't really be complaining on one hand that it looks like the thing that you want to buy, but
Yeah, it's a fantasy game. So whether it's going to be superheroic guys or dragons or muscular ass kicking women, I mean it's going to be it's fantasy, and it's supposed to be a little unrealistic and a little fun and a little crazy and a little unusual. And that's we've kind of done that, and just like society, I think Privateer over their 20 years has evolved how we present things and how we do things, and we recognize that the world's changed and we've changed with it. I mean, we actually do a really good job with our representation, and it's one of the things that I've always liked about Privateer is we have strong female characters, and I love that about us because usually the characters I play in any of my armies are the females, because I just love how we represent these kick-ass women.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, especially if they're part dragon.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
it usually helps, right?
Yeah, I mean that's some giant wings and claws, and I mean that I kind of like that.
Awesome.
Tease me,
Well,
Doug.
I think we're getting to the end here. So, Doug, I want to thank you so much for coming on here and chatting about this.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. I appreciate it. Sorry about the early technical difficulties trying to figure things out.
Oh, no
it's all
worries
good,
at all.
man.
I blame Mark, really.
I do
It
too.
usually is my fault, so. But I'm cute, so it's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, thanks again for coming on. And to all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in. And otherwise, we'll catch you later. Bye.
See ya.
Thank you.